Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Good morning, it's Tuesday, April 28, and this is the Brussels Playbook podcast. The vibe in Brussels today is spendy as the European Parliament is pushing for a bigger EU budget. Also on the pod, EU capitals aren't impressed with the Commission's age verification app. And better regulation or fewer rules. Brussels is looking at how it writes its laws. I'm Zoya and with me today again is Nick Vineker, our Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent. Hey, Nick.
Hey.
You know, we hit a real nerve yesterday with our comments about shop opening hours. We've had a deluge of people write in to our WhatsApp telling us what they think of us.
Yeah, I had a hunch that would hit a nerve, but let's get back to it.
Yeah, we'll get to those messages at the end of the show. First up, there's an important vote happening in the European Parliament later today. It's on the EU's next long-term budget, aka the multi-annual financial framework, aka the MFF, Nick.
Yum.
It's tasty, it's delicious, it's billions of euros. And basically what's happening is MEPs, they're setting out their position for talks with EU countries. And what they want is for a 10% higher spend than what the European Commission has proposed for that 2028 to 2034 budget, which is huge because we're talking about a budget of roughly 1.8 trillion over 7 years.
Yeah, so this pushed you squarely into the 2 trillion mark.
We're going to be spending those trillies, baby. But the Parliament is basically saying the Commission's proposal, it's insufficient. They want a bigger budget to deal with everything that's on the table. That's like climate, support for Ukraine, defense, competitiveness. But they also want more spending on things like agriculture and cohesion spending, and they want to keep debt repayments for COVID loans separate from the core budget so that they aren't eating into those programs.
Yeah, and of course, there's an obvious tension here because we've seen the Commission and certain member states saying, no, actually, we need a tighter budget and we need to earmark some of this money for more spending on defense and innovation and perhaps less kind of guaranteed funds going to things like cohesion. And this is setting the Parliament on a collision course with the Commission and also some of the big members of the Council. Interestingly enough, the person who's presenting this, the rapporteur today, is Siegfried Mureşan, a member of the European People's Party.
And didn't you talk to this guy yesterday?
I just spoke to him yesterday, and he was pretty clear about saying, well, if the prime ministers and presidents want Europe to do more, they've got to give us more money. You can't have a do more with less money approach, and that's what the Parliament's going to defend.
Yeah, and that's the position of some of the southern countries who want to increase that spending. But then you've got the traditional belt tighteners, your Germanys, your Netherlands, and they are really not interested in expanding the budget. They want to spend less. And their argument is, well, we're asking people to cut back at home. We're asking for budgets to be cut on the national level, and now you want to massively increase the budget for the EU.
Yeah, exactly. And they've even pushed back on more hiring in the EU institutions. So they've told the Commission they wanted to hire 2,500 additional staff over the budget period, this 7-year long-term budget. And they've said that is a non-starter. We don't want you to do that.
Yeah, but look, in the Parliament today, we're expecting a united position. So we are expecting this negotiated compromise across the pro-EU groups to pass. It passed the committee stage with a pretty clear majority. So we think it will go through, but it's not unanimous. And the fight is going to occur over the next year or so while we're really doing this budget negotiation stuff.
Yeah, and Mureşan was saying, of course, anything can happen in democracy. He's expecting an even wider majority in Parliament and use the word, the center has to hold here. We've talked a lot about the sort of fracturing majorities in Parliament. This is an example where the pro-European factions in Parliament are really kind of banding together, and it's a Parliament position, and it's really sort of institution versus institution rather than political lines inside the Parliament.
Well, it's going to be a real interesting vote, one to watch, folks. And that's not the only action happening in Strasbourg today. The College of Commissioners will be meeting in town. And they've got a few things on their plate, but this comes right after Ursula von der Leyen, who's going to chair the meeting. She was in Berlin yesterday meeting German conservatives from Friedrich Merz's CDU-CSU coalition. And it was a really difficult meeting for her. We spoke about it yesterday. This was this meeting where they were basically telling her, you've got to cut the EU legislation, cut the rules, and unshackle us and let us do business. How did she fare coming out of that meeting?
Yeah, and there was a great scoop by Oliver Nguyen on that push from the CDU. Well, she really tried to play it down when she came here. She said the commission was deeply committed to cutting bureaucracy. We're already doing this. She suggested a lot of the German ideas are already reflected in what Brussels is doing. And she framed it as an alignment rather than a real clash. But she did skip over the more eye-grabbing proposals in there, including to have a kind of oversight body that would put the commission on a leash effectively and have a right of veto over legislation. And we did collect some reactions yesterday from members of the European Parliament saying this goes against the whole principle of how we organize things.
Yeah, and either way, this conversation is going to be continuing today in Strasbourg.
Yeah. So the College of Commissioners is also discussing something that fits in, which is better regulation. Now, this is being led by Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis, the EU's economy czar, and it's all about how the EU writes laws in the first place. So it's about writing the laws better so they work in practice and having more flexibility. I want to call it impact assessments. So a shorter time between the time when you say that you want a law and actually coming up with the text.
Yeah, and the idea is they want some regulatory cleaning as well, which is like cutting overlaps and consistencies and any sort of duplication. Well, that's not how you say that word.
I was
duplication.
It sounds almost right, but it's the wrong word. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's going to happen, Nick. At this time of day, it's going to happen.
I think you just spoke
Ah,
French.
duplication. Well, they're going to be talking about basically not duplicating EU rules. So that's kind of going to be on the agenda. A bit of a spring clean. It is spring. Have you been spring cleaning?
Well, my mother-in-law was in town and she got us started, so.
I sense some stories to be told in that, Nick. Well, anyway, look, the Commission has been doing spring cleaning ever since Ursula von der Leyen took her second term in office. They've already proposed around, 10 omnibus packages? Omnibus is just a fancy way of saying cutting. It's just bureaucracy cutting packages. And it's fast-tracking changes to various laws to reduce red tape. They want to be efficient, but it's slow going because they've just spent a whole term implementing various rules and now they want to unwind them.
Yeah, and we're seeing some pushback already from NGOs, legal experts, saying this is going to weaken safeguards in the EU law. And people are saying, well, this is simplification. We're moving into deregulation, which would be a more straightforward way of describing it, especially if we cut out impact assessments. This is the process where you decide, well, what impact is this law going to have on actual people and businesses? And it could overall lower standards on things like environmental or human rights protection. And our colleague Marianne Groh is reporting on this very topic from Strasbourg. So look out for her stories on our website today.
I can't wait to read it. Love an omnibus. There's another thing we're going to be hearing about from the commissioners today, actually, Nick. It's this age verification app stuff. So this is something the Commission unveiled last week. It's an app that's designed to help protect kids online. Basically, if you're an internet user, you have to upload an ID like a passport, a driver's license or something like that. And the app then will do a face scan to match it and tells platforms whether or not you're over 18 so that you can access certain content, certain websites, spicy websites perhaps, adult content, gambling, that sort of thing.
Whatever your preference is. But before this even rolled out, of course, there's already controversy around it. Security research showed that this app could be hacked within minutes. There are concerns that the biometric checks, that's the face scan, can be bypassed and that users can simply use a VPN, which is available to anyone to get around it.
Yeah, and this is something that my country that I know best, as the EU Commission likes to put it, this is something I've been following in Australia because Australia implemented a kind of a world-first social media restriction for youths, and they're using a different system there, actually. You don't have to upload your ID, but actually apps have to essentially determine by your browsing habits whether they think you're over 18 or not, or over 16, actually, because that's the age for social media. Basically, they look at the websites that you use, the YouTube videos that you watch, and they can build a pretty good profile of you. But the data that's been coming out of Australia has shown that basically most kids are able to get around this.
Right. And of course, it's in the news because Emmanuel Macron, the French president, is pushing this. I believe Norway just got on board with an age limit for social media use. but people are still skeptical.
Yeah, and that's because, look, I think what we've seen coming out of both when we saw this, the fact that the hackers could essentially break through the app in a couple of minutes, this EU one that was proposed, and the Australian example, it's just showing that there is a limit to what can be done. But that said, it's tricky because if we were only going to be doing things that we could 100% police, we'd be left with not very many regulations. But in any case, look, some nations have come out and said, we prefer our own apps. We've got our own way of doing this and we don't really want the Commission one. Others are saying, yeah, look, we'll look into it, see if this is the best way possible. But then there's some that are saying, they're pretty blunt, they're saying, nah, no way, this isn't for us. The Commission is going ahead with this anyway, so we'll see that come out of the College of Commissioners today. It's a recommendation, though, at this stage, so it's not a must. It's here's an option for you. You're a parent, Nick. This must be something that you've been talking about at home with your kids.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, mobile phones and social media use is a preoccupation for every parent. So I think people are really tracking this kind of debate very closely to see what kind of protections are going to be put in place for our kids.
Yeah, I spoke with the Australia's e-safety commissioner a while ago now. We're talking about a year ago, and also some others who were doing the implementation of this program in Australia. And one of the things that kept coming up was one of the things that parents liked about these sorts of restrictions is just it gave them a way of explaining to their teens or their preteens, look, this is why you can't have this app or this is why you can't use this because there is this rule that says you can't. So I think that's part of it as well. People are looking for something, anything they can point to say, hey, this is the rule.
Yeah, I mean, our children are 5 and 7, and it's actually really helpful to be able to say, sorry, this program is from 8 years old, and they kind of accept that. It's like magic.
Why don't we hear from our listeners on this one, folks? WhatsApp link is in the show notes. Let us know where you stand on this one. Are you interested in these sorts of things? Do you hate it? If you're a young person who will likely have to upload your ID to use various sites, let us know what you think. Speaking, Nick, of things we ask people to tell us about in our WhatsApp, yesterday was quite the deluge of messages from people talking about their views on shops in Belgium or Brussels being open on a Sunday and later.
Yeah, it turns out people have a lot of feelings about this.
They have feelings and they have shared them with us. We've had Pedro from the Netherlands write in and he said we should be fighting for fewer working hours so we can do our groceries and shopping therapy during the week and not the other way around.
John, what is there that I absolutely need to buy on a Sunday that I can't buy on a Saturday instead, denying many shop staff the day off work that I'm quite happy to enjoy myself?
I'm sensing a theme here. I think our consumerist expat ways are being called out, Nick.
Yeah, there's definitely a majority of the responses in favor of keeping things as they are.
Yeah, David from Portugal wrote in and said, Sundays are for markets, friends and family, neighborhood life, cafes, cinema, bookshops, parks. Can I just say, David from Portugal, you can't get books at a bookshop in Brussels on a Sunday currently. So,
good try.
I agree. Sundays are for bookshops. But he continues, if like many EU bubble people, your week is structured entirely around your laptop, guilty as charged, then of course Sunday is just another opportunity to shop. Fair enough, David from Portugal.
I kind of feel personally triggered by that because I'm writing the playbook on Sunday and my day is structured around my laptop.
David nailed it.
Sorry, David.
He tells the truth. Well, way to make us look selfish, folks. But let's keep this debate going. Send us your thoughts. Keep them coming. And folks, I just want to say a personal thank you from me to you. I whinged yesterday about the fact that we were stuck on 676 reviews in our Spotify. And you came and you listened and you answered my prayers. And we've got dozens more that have come through in the last 24 hours. So thanks, folks. Keep them coming. As Nick said, let's get us to 3 figures. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back with you tomorrow.
Putting off replacing your window treatments because you think it's complicated? At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years proving it doesn't have to be. And today is your last chance to save big on Spring Black Friday deals. Whether you want to DIY it or have a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we've got you. Free samples, real design experts, and zero pressure. Just help when you need it. Shop up to 45% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure during the Blinds.com Spring Black Friday Last Chance sale. Rules and restrictions apply.